Immortality gifted Lord Mannimarco with an internal perspective, and with it, a new kind of pragmatism. His domain was no longer a kingdom to be ruled, but a vast and complex ledger of assets and liabilities. Every soul, every prisoner, every alliance had a quantifiable value. In the cold calculus of the King of Worms, power was a resource to be managed, and he had become its most ruthless accountant. And now we find ourselves in Mannimarco's throne room, staring out at the captive Prince Junkin brought forth in chains. Prince Junkin, your capture is an opportunity for me, and perhaps for you. Can his house afford the ransom, my spy master? Our intelligence suggests they can, my lord. Excellent. I'll ransom you out, Prince. Your freedom for a replenishment of my coffers. And your gold is more useful to me than your life. Send the demands. And while the ransom for Prince Junkin was being arranged, a report arrived from the south concerning the long problematic High Chieftain Irushir of Sabatu. Mannimarco's intricate schemings had finally borne fruit. My lord, the scheme against High Chieftain Irushir was a success. We now have a strong loyalty hook. Perfect. He is neutered, and that hook will ensure he won't war with us again. The southern border is secure, and that is one less thorn in my side. And while he manages his political resources and his treasury was soon to be supplemented, Mannimarco would turn his attention to another vital resource, Magica. The potent spells required to maintain his powers were costly, and his reserves were in constant need of replenishment. And he found his solutions, as always, stashed away in the dungeons. Acolyte, I need to harvest some souls, and this one will suffice. Bring him to my chambers. And you would see Mannimarco sometimes in the thick of the night. With dark incantations, he would summon an ethereal energy, and it would violently and scarcely drain and rip the soul from a prisoner, and life would be extinguished, and the soul would be consumed by Mannimarco, who would absorb its powers and feel the strength of his own bones rise. The Lich Lord, for him, soul was a pure currency, and he would not drain the prisoners, but consume them in entirety. And he would extinguish many people's lives to fuel his own internal ambitions. However, not all prisoners were destined for the cairn or the auction block, and some that he captured would possess a different kind of utility. His ransom would be negligible, and his soul mundane, but his talent, that is a resource I can put to use. He will make a good thrall. And as another ritual composed, Mannimarco would turn this man into an intelligent servant, preserving the skills that he had once possessed, unlike the undead that Mannimarco would create from the bundles of corpses. It was the immediate lifeblood of the person being able to retain their semblance of an identity that allowed Mannimarco to create more stronger thralls for his armies. And this was one of those few turning points. Before, Mannimarco's armies would struggle against provisional armies and professional enemies. But as a lich, he was learning to leverage every form of power, and he was building his strength not with soldiers, not just with the gold extracted from his enemies, but also with the magicka harvested from their very souls, and with servants forged from their finest, and with political chains wrapped around various thrones. The price of power, as Mannimarco understood, was a cost others would always be made to pay. And with his resources replenished and his rivals neutered, through these ruthless means he could turn his attention to forging an army that could finally stand against the greatest of foes. Having reinforced his domain through the cold arithmetic of resource management, the Lich Lord would turn his gaze outward once more, and his legions would be bolstered by the grim influx of gold and magicka. This was the turning point and a test of his new era of warfare. But the world would not suffer a necromancer's ambition to go unanswered, and from the north, a righteous fire rose to meet his chilling shadow. My undying lord, an army marches from the north. It is the High Chieftain of Kardala, Korbs Jahanith. They call him the Lion of Hell Ra. He has declared war and his banners are already crossing our borders. Jahanith. The pups of that bloodline had long been a thorn in my side, and this one has a reputation. They say he's a great warrior and a hero to his people. Let us see if his piety can withstand an army that does not fear death. High Chieftain Korbs was indeed a formidable figure and a respectful warrior known for his zealous devotion and his deep ancestral hatred of the worm cult. He was a symbol of mortal defiance, and his army was composed of seasoned soldiers who fought for their beliefs with a fire that Mannimarco's cold legions could not comprehend. Their clash was inevitable, a battle between the living and the dead, between faith and blasphemy. The battle was a maelstrom of carnage. Korb's living soldiers fought with the courage of lions, their quality evident as they carved through Mannimarco's lesser undead. But for every skeleton they shattered, another clawed its way forward. It was in the heart of this twirling chaos that tragedy struck. And Mannimarco's wife, a long-lived elf and a capable commander, was caught in a charge led by Korb's personal guard. His wife struck down by the blow, and the death, a form that even elven longevity could not prevent. Mannimarco would feel and see this event occur in the distance from his command post, and its expression would be readable amongst his men. However, for a fleeting moment, the Lich Lord would feel the sting of loss, and not of love, for such mortal sentiments have long since turned to dust, but of a valuable time-tested asset, his family. He was reminded that they were not immortal like he was, that they were fragile, that they were weakness within his system. They were, of course, always insurance of continuing his legacy should something happen, but after being a lich for so long, Mannimarco could not even believe of a possibility of his own untimely demise. And this exposure was but an inefficiency that could not be tolerated. You would find Mannimarco in a low whisper to himself from the tent. A lesson learned. Any asset worth keeping is an asset worth making eternal. Mannimarco would raise his hand, and a torrent of profane green-black energy would erupt and shoot and soar across the battlefield. And it would engulf his wife's fallen body, and the living soldiers of Jahanneth would recoil and back away in horror, as it is if flames have risen from the ground. And in this dark act, Mannimarco would rectify his loss on the spot. He would pour his power into his wife's corpse, and denying her soul its journey into Aetherius, and twist and manipulate her form into something new, to arise from the mud of the battlefield as a terrifying undead champion. And her eyes would blaze with a cold green light. Her capacity for combat was now untethered by fear or pain, and it was fierce enough to shake the very ranks of the army. She was now an undead champion, and a horrific echo of her former self. She would let out an unearthly shriek and charge back into the fray. Her fierce, unnatural combat prowess would shatter the morale of the Jahanneth forces, who were horrified to see that the enemy's consort returned as a monster. Seeing the enemy's wife desecrate and turned into an instrument of war was a blow that valor alone could not hope to withstand, and the courage of the Corp's army would break. They were routed and cut down by an enemy that could not only die and rise again, but could turn its own beloved leaders into its most terrifying weapons. Mannimarco would stand victorious over the corpse-strewn battlefield, alongside his new undead wife, who would stand silently and obediently at his side, as he had defeated the Jahanneths again once and for all. The victory over the pious and celebrated Corpse Jahanneth was more than a mere battle won. This was a paradigm shift. On the corpse-strewn field of his own domain, Lord Mannimarco had proven that his new military doctrines, a corps of elite knights augmented by the inexhaustible tide of undeath, could not only hold its own, but could crush one of the North's formidable enemy and armies. The turning points had been reached. The Worm King was no longer a besieged ruler, but a new power. We have won. Corp's power is broken. He cannot hope to expand. But this victory is not an end, but an opportunity. The army will not rest. For the Lich Lord, there was no peace, only shifting objectives and priorities. And with absolute authority, he gave his next order. And his war machine was to become a machine of plunder. We will raid. They will wish to make war upon the King of Worms. We will make them suffer. And we will take our right in blood, gold, or souls. Mannimarco's legions would sweep the defenseless lands of Corpse, pillaging both villages and keeps, and the spoils of war were carted back to his fortress. And during the ruthless raiding, word would soon reach Mannimarco that one of the lesser lords he had defeated, of course, would die. And the Lich Lord was indifferent. His focus was on living assets that he could exploit. And he learned that many of his captives would escape his capture. He would dispatch forces to hunt down these captives, princes, nobles. For Mannimarco would never pass up an opportunity at gold. And beyond the war programs, we now go back to the war chamber for the economic developments of the Order of Worms. My lord, the training program is complete. Your personal guard is ready. While the war had raged, Mannimarco launched the long-term project, and it had begun to reach its conclusion. He had to build and develop something of a force to thwart off all of these new growing powers and enemies. He had been training a new type of soldier, an elite unit to serve as his own personal guard and as the devastating core of his armies. They were called the Somerset Justicars, an elite mage unit clad in black armor and wielding the destructive powers of the arcane. The Somerset Justicars would move with cold precision, and they would obliterate many targets in their training practices. They were a stark contrast to the shambling skeletons and thralls. And with his treasury now flush with the spoils of war, and his new elite mages ready for deployment, Mannimarco was no longer reacting to simple threats. He was choosing conquest. Bold conquest. The Northwest remains a bastion of our enemies. House Johanneth licks its wounds, but their power is still immense. They will be dealt with in time, but not today. And with his new power, he could afford to be strategic. He identified a different target, the duchy to the east. It was ripe for conquest. We have the strength now. And the worm cult must grow stronger. We will wage holy war for the Eastern Duchy. For we will push to the Sanctuary and to the Imperial Citadel. For mass power lies in the east. Let the Johanneths watch from their walls in the northwest. As my power grows, they will know that their time is coming. Mannimarco had weathered many storms and transferred loss into strength, and forged a war machine worthy of an eternal king. The Lich Lord Mannimarco was once just the beleaguered necromancer, but now he stood as a true warlord, and his gaze fixed on the future of unending conquest, and he was ready to finally impose his will upon the world and show that Tamriel, Alinor, and the Sigic Order, what a force they had let unleashed.